They opened a tomb of a lost civilization. The stone whispered her name.
The desert winds of Zanara 7 howled across the barren landscape, carrying dust that sparkled like tiny diamonds under the twin suns. Doctor. Elena Cross stood at the edge of the excavation site, her dark hair tied back in a practical bun, her eyes fixed on the massive stone structure emerging from beneath centuries of sand and rock. "Careful with that section," Elena called out to her team. "The crystalline formation looks fragile." Her assistant, Marcus Chen, wiped sweat from his forehead and grinned. "Doc, we've been careful for 3 months. I think we're getting pretty good at this." Elena smiled. Marcus was right. The human archaeological team had worked tirelessly on this project, and now they were finally close to something extraordinary. The ruins of the Aethari civilization had fascinated the galaxy for generations. 50,000 years ago, the Aethari had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only scattered ruins and unanswered questions. "Dr. Cross, the Council observers have arrived," said Lieutenant Sarah Park, pointing toward 3 figures approaching from the landing site. Elena's smile faded slightly. The Galactic Council had insisted on sending observers, representatives from 3 different species, to monitor the excavation. They didn't trust humans to handle such an important discovery alone. Humanity was still considered young and reckless by many of the older civilizations. The first observer was Krelvok, a tall Zentarii with blue-scaled skin and 4 arms. His people had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. Next came Miras, a graceful Valonian whose translucent skin shimmered with inner light. The Valonians were known for their logical minds and scientific precision. Finally, there was Thok, a sturdy Grendel whose rock-like exterior made him look like a walking boulder. "Dr. Cross," Krelvok said, his voice formal and cold. "We are here to ensure proper protocols are followed. The Aethari sites are galactic heritage, not human property." Elena kept her voice calm and respectful. "Of course. We welcome your expertise. We're all here to learn about the Aethari together." Thok grunted. "Humans always say nice words. We will see if actions match." Elena chose not to respond to the provocation. Instead, she led the observers to the excavation site. Her team had uncovered what appeared to be an entrance, a massive doorway carved into solid rock, covered in intricate symbols that glowed faintly in the fading light. "Remarkable," Mira said softly, her scientific curiosity overcoming her initial reserve. "These symbols are unlike any Aethari writing we've documented before. That's what makes this discovery so special," Marcus added enthusiastically. "We think this might be a tomb or a vault of some kind, something they wanted to keep sealed." Krelvok examined the door with a scanning device. "The seal is intact. This chamber has not been opened in at least 48,000 years, possibly longer." Elena's heart raced with excitement. An unopened Aethari site was incredibly rare. Most ruins had been picked clean by treasure hunters, or damaged by time. This could provide answers that the galaxy had sought for millennia. "Let's proceed carefully," Elena said. "Marcus, start with the laser cutter on the lowest setting. We don't want to damage anything inside." As Marcus began working on the ancient seal, Elena studied the glowing symbols on the door. There was something strange about them, something that made her skin tingle. She reached out slowly, her fingertips hovering just above the stone surface. "Dr. Cross, please don't touch anything until we've completed our analysis," Krelvok warned sharply. Elena pulled her hand back, but the strange sensation remained. It felt almost like the stone was humming, vibrating at a frequency she could feel in her bones, but not quite here. The laser cutter made quick work of the ancient seal. With a deep grinding sound, the massive door began to slide open, revealing darkness beyond. Cool air rushed out, carrying a scent of minerals and something else, something ancient and mysterious. "Remarkable preservation," Miras observed, her instruments recording everything. "The atmosphere inside is still intact." The team set up lights and ventilation equipment. Safety protocols required them to test the air before anyone entered. While the technicians worked, Elena found herself drawn back to the symbols on the doorway. She couldn't explain it, but they seemed to be calling to her. And then she heard it. Elena. The whisper was soft, barely audible, but it was there. Clear as morning bells. Her name. Spoken in a voice that seemed to come from the stone itself. Elena froze. Did anyone else hear that? The team looked at her with confused expressions. Hear what, Doc? Marcus asked. Someone said my name, Elena insisted, her voice uncertain. Krelvok's forearms crossed skeptically. Our sensors detect no audio anomalies. Perhaps the excitement is affecting your perception. Dr. Cross. Elena. There it was again, stronger this time. The whisper seemed to resonate through the stone, through the air, through her very thoughts. Elena stepped closer to the doorway, her hand reaching out once more. Dr. Cross, I must insist, Krelvok began, but Elena's fingers were already touching the glowing symbols. The moment her skin made contact with the ancient stone, the world exploded into light and sensation. Images flooded her mind, towering cities of crystal and light, beings of grace and wisdom, celebrations and ceremonies, and then something else, something profound and peaceful. She gasped and pulled her hand away, stumbling backward. Marcus caught her arm, steadying her. Elena. Are you all right? She looked at her team, at the concerned observers, at the open doorway leading into darkness and mystery. Her hand trembled slightly as she spoke. The tomb isn't just calling to anyone, Elena whispered, her eyes wide with wonder and realization. It's calling specifically to me. The Athari. They left this for humans. They left it for us. Krelvok's scales rippled with skepticism, but even he couldn't deny what they'd all just witnessed. The symbols had responded to Elena's touch. And only Elena's touch. Whatever lay within that ancient tomb. It had been waiting 50,000 years for a human to find it. Elena spent the entire night in her research tent, unable to sleep. The images that had flooded her mind when she touched the stone played over and over, like a beautiful dream she couldn't forget. She had seen the Athari people tall, elegant beings with crystalline features that caught and reflected light. She had felt their emotions, their joy, their deep understanding of the universe. But most importantly, she had felt their intention. They had left this tomb as a message, and somehow, they had known that humans would one day find it. When morning came, Elena returned to the excavation site. The entire team was already there, along with the 3 galactic observers. Krelvok looked particularly stern, his blue scales darker than usual. Dr. Cross, we must discuss what happened yesterday, the Zentarii said formally. The Council is concerned about your reaction to the tomb entrance. Concerned? Elena asked, keeping her voice steady. Why? Mira stepped forward, her translucent skin glowing softly in the morning light. You experienced what appears to be direct neural contact with an alien artifact. This could be dangerous. You might be contaminated or influenced by unknown technology. Thok nodded his massive rocky head. Humans are already unpredictable. We cannot allow ancient alien technology to make you more unstable. Elena felt a flash of frustration but pushed it down. She understood their concerns, even if their words stung. I'm not contaminated. I'm not being controlled. I'm being communicated with. That makes no sense, Krelvok said flatly. Our translation devices detected nothing. Our sensors found no transmissions. Only you claim to hear these whispers. Maybe that's the point, Marcus interjected, stepping up beside Elena. Maybe the Aethari designed their message to work specifically with human neurology. The 3 observers exchanged glances. It was clear they found this idea absurd. Elena took a deep breath. Let me try again. Let me touch the stone again. But this time, monitor everything my brain activity. Heart rate. Everything. Maybe we can prove that something real is happening. Miras considered this proposal. As a scientist, she couldn't deny the value of gathering more data. Very well, but if we detect any harmful effects, we will remove you from the site immediately. The team set up medical monitoring equipment, while Elena approached the tomb entrance once more. The symbols on the stone doorway glowed faintly, as if anticipating her touch. She could feel the whispers already, calling her name softly, gently. "Ready when you are, Doc," Marcus said from behind the monitoring station. Elena reached out and placed both hands on the ancient stone. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. This time, the visions were stronger, clearer. She saw the Aethari civilization at its peak, magnificent cities that stretched toward the sky, gardens filled with plants from 1,000 worlds, beings of different species living together in harmony. The Aethari had not been conquerors. They had been teachers, philosophers, seekers of wisdom. And then she saw their transformation. The Aethari had reached a point in their evolution where physical bodies were no longer necessary. One by one, they had chosen to ascend, to become beings of pure consciousness and energy. But before they left their physical existence behind, they had created this tomb, this message vault. Elena. The whisper came again, but this time it formed words in her mind. You understand loss. You understand growth. You understand the pain of becoming something better. Tears streamed down Elena's face as the full weight of the message hit her. The Aethari had left this for humanity because they saw something in human nature, a potential for transformation that reminded them of themselves. Elena. Marcus's voice broke through the vision. Your neural activity is off the charts, but it's not harmful. It's like your brain is processing information at an incredible rate. Elena opened her eyes but kept her hands on the stone. They're teaching me, she said, her voice filled with wonder. The Aethari are showing me their history, their philosophy, their path to enlightenment. Krelvok's skepticism was wavering. His instruments were confirming what Elena described: massive data transfer, but completely harmless. How is this possible? Why would they design communication that only works with humans? Because humans have something the Aethari recognized, Elena explained, still connected to the stone. We have a unique combination of empathy and pattern recognition. We can feel emotional truths while simultaneously understanding complex logical structures. The Aethari built this message to resonate specifically with those qualities. Miras moved closer, her scientific curiosity fully engaged now. What else are they telling you? Elena closed her eyes again, letting the images flow. They're showing me the inside of the tomb. It's not just a burial chamber. It's a library, an art gallery, a philosophical archive. Everything they wanted to pass on to future civilizations is in there. Weapons? Thok asked suspiciously. Technology for war? No. Elena said firmly. Nothing like that. They left behind art, music, scientific discoveries about harmony and balance, and most importantly, records of their mistakes. They nearly destroyed themselves once, long before they evolved. They were warlike and aggressive, but they learned, they changed, and they want to share that journey with others who might walk a similar path. The weight of this revelation hung in the air. All three observers stood silently, processing what Elena had described. They chose humans because we remind them of who they used to be. Elena continued, her voice soft but certain. We have a violent history. We've made terrible mistakes. But we also have the capacity to learn, to feel remorse, to change course. The Aethari saw our potential because they lived it themselves. Krelvok's forearms uncrossed slowly. This is unexpected. The tomb will only open fully for someone who can understand, not just with logic, but with heart, Elena said, finally removing her hands from the stone. She felt exhausted but exhilarated. I can be that bridge. I can help translate what the Aethari left behind. Thok stepped forward, his rocky features softening slightly. Perhaps we judged too quickly. If what you say is true, this changes everything. Miras nodded in agreement. We should inform the council. This discovery is bigger than any of us imagined. Elena looked at the open doorway leading into the tomb's depths. The whispers had grown quiet now, as if waiting patiently for her to take the next step. The Aethari waited 50,000 years for this moment, Elena said quietly. They knew someone would eventually find them. Someone who could understand their message. Someone who needed to hear it. Marcus smiled at his colleague. Looks like that someone is you, Doc. Elena nodded, her determination renewed. Tomorrow, they would enter the tomb. Tomorrow, they would begin to uncover the wisdom of a lost civilization. And tomorrow, humanity would take its first steps toward understanding the gift the Aethari had left behind. But tonight, Elena stood at the threshold of mystery and possibility, knowing that everything was about to change. The following morning, Elena stood at the entrance of the tomb with a sense of reverence she had never felt before. The team had prepared everything carefully, lighting equipment, recording devices, and safety gear. But Elena knew that no amount of preparation could truly ready her for what lay inside. Remember, Dr. Cross, Krelvok said, his tone much gentler than before. If you feel overwhelmed at any point, we will bring you out immediately. Elena nodded gratefully. The Zentarii observer had changed significantly since yesterday. Seeing the scientific data had convinced him that something genuine was happening, something beyond their current understanding. I'll be careful, Elena promised. But I don't think the Aethari mean any harm. Everything I've felt from them has been peaceful, welcoming. Miras adjusted her recording equipment. We will document everything. This moment will be remembered throughout galactic history. Elena took a deep breath and stepped through the ancient doorway. The interior of the tomb was breathtaking. The walls were made of a crystalline material that caught and amplified the light from their equipment, making the entire chamber glow with soft, rainbow colors. The ceiling stretched high above them, covered in intricate carvings that seemed to tell stories without words. Incredible, Marcus whispered beside her. It's like walking into a cathedral made of starlight. As Elena moved deeper into the chamber, the whispers grew stronger. But now they weren't just saying her name, they were guiding her, showing her where to look, what to touch, how to unlock the secrets the Aethari had left behind. She approached a large pedestal in the center of the room. On it rested a crystalline sphere that pulsed with inner light. Elena reached out slowly, and the moment her fingers touched the sphere, the entire chamber came alive. Holographic images appeared all around them, three-dimensional recordings of the Aethari people going about their daily lives. The team watched in amazement as they saw Aethari children playing in gardens, artists creating beautiful sculptures, scientists conducting experiments, philosophers debating under starlit skies. They're showing us who they were, Elena said softly. Not just their achievements, but their ordinary moments, their joy, their struggles, their simple pleasures. Thok moved closer, his rocky features showing genuine emotion. They were not so different from us. They laughed. They learned. They loved their families. The holographic scenes shifted, showing darker times. The team watched as the images revealed the Aethari's troubled past wars between their own people. Cities burning. Leaders consumed by pride and anger. Elena felt the weight of their ancient regret, as if it were her own. This is what they wanted us to see most, Elena explained, tears forming in her eyes. They were not always peaceful. They made terrible mistakes. They hurt each other. They nearly destroyed everything they had built. Krelvok's 4 arms hung at his sides as he watched the painful history unfold. Why would they preserve these shameful memories? Because shame led to wisdom, Elena answered. Watch what happens next. The holographic images showed a transformation. The Aethari had reached a breaking point where they could no longer continue on their destructive path. They had to choose, evolve, or perish. And they chose evolution. They chose peace. They chose to become better than they had been. The images showed Aethari gathering together, sharing knowledge instead of hoarding it, healing old wounds instead of creating new ones, building bridges between different groups instead of walls. It was a slow process, taking generations. But gradually, their civilization transformed into something beautiful. They learned from their mistakes, Mira said with wonder. They actually changed their entire society. Elena nodded, still connected to the crystalline sphere. And then they evolved beyond the physical. But before they left, they wanted to leave this message for whoever would find it. They wanted other civilizations to know that change is possible. That mistakes don't have to define your future. The holographic images faded, and new ones appeared: diagrams, formulas, artistic techniques, philosophical texts. The tomb was revealing its treasures, layer by layer. "This is their gift," Elena said, her voice filled with awe. "Not weapons or tools of conquest, but knowledge about harmony, balance, and transformation. Scientific discoveries that work with nature instead of against it. Art that celebrates life in all its forms. Philosophy that teaches compassion and understanding." Marcus was frantically recording everything. This could revolutionize how we think about civilization itself, about progress, and what it really means. "There's more," Elena said, feeling the whispers guide her to different sections of the chamber. They left specific messages about different aspects of life, how to resolve conflicts without violence, how to balance technology with nature, how to honor differences while building unity. As the team explored further, they discovered that each section of the tomb was dedicated to a different lesson the Aethari had learned. There were chambers about environmental stewardship, about artistic expression as a path to understanding, about scientific inquiry guided by ethics, about leadership through service rather than domination. Thok stood before a display about forgiveness and reconciliation. "My people could learn from this," he admitted quietly. "We still carry grudges from conflicts that happened centuries ago." Krelvok examined a section about interspecies cooperation. "We thought we were advanced, but perhaps we still have much to learn." Elena moved to the final section of the main chamber. Here, the whispers were strongest. She placed her hand on another crystalline formation, and a new message flooded her consciousness, personal, direct, meant specifically for the one who would open this tomb. "What are they telling you now?" Miras asked gently. Elena's voice trembled with emotion as she spoke. "They're saying that they chose human neural patterns intentionally. They studied the patterns of consciousness across the galaxy for thousands of years before they ascended. They found that humans possess a unique combination: the ability to feel deep remorse for past actions, the imagination to envision different futures, and the stubbornness to keep trying even after failure." "That sounds like humans," Marcus said with a small smile. "They say that we remind them of themselves at a crucial point in their history," Elena continued. "Young, passionate, capable of both great harm and great good. They left this tomb as a beacon, a message that says, 'We were like you once. We struggled like you struggle. But we found a way forward. And so can you.'" Tears streamed freely down Elena's face now. "They believe in us. After 50,000 years, across the void of time and space, they reached out to tell us that we have the potential to become something wonderful, that our mistakes don't have to be the end of our story." The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the crystals. Every member of the team, human and alien alike, stood in reverent quiet, absorbing the magnitude of what the Aethari had left behind. Finally, Krelvok spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "This is not just humanity's gift to receive. This is a gift for all of us. The Aethari's wisdom should be shared throughout the galaxy. Elena nodded. Yes, but they chose humans as the interpreters because we understand the emotional weight of transformation. We know what it costs to change, to admit mistakes, to choose a better path. We can help other species understand not just the information, but the feelings behind it. Miras placed a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder. You must present this to the Galactic Council. Elena looked around the magnificent tomb one last time before they would leave to report their findings. The whispers had grown quiet again, as if the Aethari were satisfied that their message had been received. The real work begins now, Elena said softly. Understanding this gift is just the first step. Sharing it with the galaxy, that's the challenge ahead. As the team prepared to exit the tomb, Elena felt a final whisper brush through her mind like a gentle breeze. Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding. Carry us forward with wisdom and compassion. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council on the planet Nexus Prime. The circular chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in ascending tiers that allowed representatives from hundreds of worlds to observe the proceedings. The air hummed with translation devices working in dozens of languages simultaneously. Elena had never felt so small, yet so determined. Dr. Elena Cross of Earth, announced High Chancellor Vexra, a distinguished Korthan whose silver fur shimmered under the chamber lights. You have requested this emergency session to discuss the findings on Zanara 7. The Council will hear your testimony. Elena stepped forward to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. Behind her, holographic displays showed images from inside the tomb. The crystalline chambers, the Aethari holograms, the repositories of knowledge they had discovered. Honored members of the Council, Elena began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. What we found on Zanara 7 is not just an archaeological discovery. It is a gift left specifically for this moment in galactic history. The Aethari left behind comprehensive knowledge about transformation, peace, and the evolution of civilization. A council member from the Draxian Empire stood abruptly. And you claim this gift was left for humans specifically? How convenient for your species. Ah. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elena had expected this resistance. Not for humans exclusively. Elena clarified. The Aethari intended their wisdom to be shared with all species, but they designed the tomb to be opened by someone with human neural patterns, because... Elena. Because humans are superior? Interrupted another council member, a Keloth whose tentacles writhed with agitation. This is exactly the kind of arrogance we feared. Elena shook her head firmly. No, not because we're superior. Because we're familiar. The Aethari chose human neurology because we remind them of who they used to be flawed, struggling, making mistakes, but capable of learning and changing. She activated another holographic display, showing the Aethari's own violent history. The chamber fell silent as representatives watched the ancient civilization's struggles, their wars, their failures, their near destruction. The Aethari were not always peaceful, Elena continued. They nearly destroyed themselves through conflict and pride. But they learned. They transformed. And they saw that same potential in humanity, because our history mirrors theirs. Krelvok stepped forward from the observation gallery. I accompanied Dr. Cross into the tomb. I was skeptical at first, but what we witnessed cannot be denied. The Aethari's message is genuine, and it is profound. Dr. Cross is not claiming superiority. She is acknowledging humanity's flaws as the very reason they were chosen to interpret this wisdom. Miras joined him. The scientific data supports everything Dr. Cross has reported. The tomb's communication system is specifically calibrated to human empathy centers and pattern recognition abilities. It is remarkable technology, and it works as she describes. High Chancellor Vexra raised her hand for silence. Dr. Cross, many here are concerned about humanity being given custodianship of such powerful knowledge. Your species has only been part of the galactic community for 3 generations. You still have conflicts on your own homeworld. How can we trust you with the Aethari's legacy? Elena took a deep breath. This was the moment she had prepared for. The question she knew would come. She decided to answer with complete honesty. You're right to be concerned, Elena said, and shocked silence filled the chamber. Humanity is young. We still struggle with conflicts, prejudices, and mistakes. We have a long way to go before we become the kind of civilization we aspire to be. She paused, looking around at the hundreds of faces, some human, most alien, all watching her intently. But that's exactly why the Aethari chose us to be interpreters, not owners, of their wisdom. We understand what it means to be broken and trying to heal. We know the weight of regret. We recognize the difficulty of changing old patterns. When we share the Aethari's lessons about transformation, we won't do it from a position of having already achieved perfection. We'll do it as fellow travelers on the same difficult journey. A human council member from the Earth delegation stood. Ambassador Chen. Elena recognized her, a veteran diplomat who had worked for decades to build Earth's reputation in the galactic community. High Chancellor, if I may, Ambassador Chen said. Dr. Cross raises an important point. Perhaps the Aethari's greatest wisdom was not choosing a species that had already achieved enlightenment, but choosing one that was actively struggling toward it. The lessons mean more when taught by those who understand the difficulty firsthand. Pretty words, growled a Grendel representative. But what is your actual proposal, Dr. Cross? What do you want the council to do? Elena activated her final holographic display, an architectural plan she had worked on with Marcus and the team for weeks. I propose we establish an institute on Zanara 7, Elena said clearly. A place where beings from all species can come to study the Aethari's wisdom together. Humans will serve as interpreters and guides, helping others understand the emotional and philosophical contexts of the teachings. But we will not be gatekeepers. The knowledge will be freely shared with everyone. And who would lead this institute? Asked Chancellor Vexra. A council representing multiple species, Elena answered. Humans, Zentarii, Valonians, Grendels, and representatives from any other civilization that wishes to participate. We would work together to study, understand, and share the Aethari's legacy. This still gives humans a privileged position, the Draxian representative objected. Elena nodded. Yes, it does. But not a position of power, a position of responsibility. The Aethari trusted us with interpretation because of our unique connection to their message. But trust works both ways. We must trust the galactic community to work with us, to guide us, to ensure we don't misuse this gift. Thok stood from his seat in the observation gallery. The massive Grendel had been quiet throughout the proceedings, but now his voice carried across the chamber. I watched Dr. Cross connect with the tomb, Thok said. I saw her tears when she understood the Aethari's mistakes. I felt her genuine humility. She does not seek power. She seeks understanding. My people have a saying, the broken pot knows best how to mend others. Perhaps humans are the broken pot the Aethari knew we all needed. No send. The Aethari knew. Everyone of the Raske state. People have a saying. The metaphor hung in the air. Elena saw several council members nodding thoughtfully. Chancellor Vexra looked around the chamber, gauging the mood of the assembly. This matter requires careful consideration. We will adjourn for deliberation. The council will reconvene tomorrow to vote on Dr. Cross's proposal. As the session ended and representatives filed out of the chamber, Elena felt exhausted but hopeful. She had spoken her truth. She had acknowledged humanity's flaws while also affirming their unique role. Now, it was up to the council to decide. Marcus approached with a tired smile. You did great, Doc. Really great. I just hope it was enough. Elena said quietly. Krelvok and Miras joined them, along with Thok. The four observers who had started as skeptics had become Elena's strongest allies. Whatever the council decides, Krelvok said, you have already changed how many of us view humanity. That is no small thing. Elena looked at her unlikely friends and felt grateful. The Aethari had left their wisdom for the galaxy, but they had also created an opportunity for different species to come together, to understand each other better, to work toward common goals. The vote tomorrow will determine the future of the Institute, Miras observed. But in a way, the real work has already begun. We are already learning from the Aethari's message, learning to listen to each other, to overcome prejudices, to work together despite our differences. Elena smiled. Maybe that was their greatest gift all along. Not just the knowledge they left behind, but the opportunity they created for us to grow closer as a galactic community. As they left the council chamber together, human and alien, walking side by side, Elena felt the whispers one more time, soft and approving, as if the Aethari were pleased with what they saw. Tomorrow would bring the council's decision. But tonight, Elena allowed herself to hope that wisdom and understanding would prevail. Part 5. Whispers Across the Stars. The council chamber was completely silent as High Chancellor Vexra stood to announce the decision. Elena sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Marcus sat beside her, offering silent support. Behind them, Krelvok, Miras, and Thok waited with equal anticipation. After extensive deliberation, Chancellor Vexra began, her silver fur catching the light. The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding the Aethari discovery on Zanara 7. Elena held her breath. The Council recognizes the unique nature of this finding and the sincere intentions of Dr. Elena Cross and her team. Therefore, we approve the establishment of the Aethari Institute on Zanara 7 with the following conditions. Relief flooded through Elena, but she listened carefully. The Institute will be governed by a multi-species council, with representatives from at least 12 different civilizations. Humans will serve as interpreters and primary guides, but all decisions regarding the preservation and sharing of Aethari knowledge must be made collectively. The knowledge will be freely accessible to all species, and the Institute will welcome students and scholars from across the galaxy. Chancellor Vexra looked directly at Elena. Dr. Cross, you will serve as the first director of the Aethari Institute, but you will work alongside co-directors from other species. This is not a position of power, but of service. Do you accept this responsibility? Elena stood, her voice strong and clear. I accept, with gratitude and humility. The Aethari's wisdom belongs to everyone, and I pledge to honor that truth in everything we do. The chamber erupted in applause, not universal, but widespread. It was a beginning, and that was enough. 6 months later, the Aethari Institute stood on the surface of Zanara 7, a beautiful structure that blended modern architecture with designs inspired by the ancient tomb itself. The building was made of transparent materials that caught the light of the twin suns, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the floors and walls. Elena walked through the main courtyard, watching students from dozens of different species gathered in study groups. A young Zentarii was discussing philosophy with 2 human students. A group of Velonians were examining Aethari art with Grendel scholars. Everywhere she looked, beings of different worlds were learning together, sharing ideas, building friendships. Director Cross, called a familiar voice. Elena turned to see Ambassador Chen approaching with a group of visitors. These delegates from the Outer Rim worlds have come to see the Institute. Would you give them a tour? Of course, Elena said warmly. Welcome to the Aethari Institute. I'm honored to show you what we've built here. As she led the group through the building, Elena explained how the Institute operated. The main building housed classrooms, research facilities, and meditation spaces, but the heart of the Institute was still the ancient tomb itself. which remained open for those who wished to connect with the Athari's original message. "We've made a remarkable discovery," Elena told the visitors as they walked. "More humans have visited the tomb, and each one hears whispers. But the messages are different for each person, personalized. As if the Athari left many messages, not just one." She led them to the tomb entrance, where a young human woman named Sarah was experiencing her first connection with the Athari crystals. Elena and the group watched respectfully as Sarah touched the glowing symbols, her eyes widening with wonder. "What do you hear?" Elena asked gently when Sarah opened her eyes. "They're telling me about patience," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "About how growth takes time, and that's okay. They're showing me their mistakes with rushing progress, and how they learn to value the journey as much as the destination." Elena smiled. "The Athari speak to what each person needs to hear. That's the beauty of their gift." A Quiloth delegate in the group raised a tentacle thoughtfully. "So, the tomb is like a teacher that adapts to each student?" "Exactly," Elena confirmed. "The Athari understood that wisdom isn't one size fits all. Different beings, different species, different individuals, we all need different lessons at different times." As they continued the tour, Elena showed them the various departments of the Institute. There was a section dedicated to environmental sciences, where Athari teachings about harmony with nature were being studied and applied. Another area focused on conflict resolution, where representatives from species with historical tensions were learning Athari techniques for peace building. "The most popular program," Elena explained, "is our workshop on personal transformation. Beings from all over the galaxy come here to learn how the Athari changed from a warlike civilization to a peaceful one. They want to apply those same principles to their own lives and societies." Marcus appeared from one of the research labs, grinning widely. "Elena, you need to see this. We've just translated another section of the tomb's archives. It's about music, how the Athari used sound and rhythm to create emotional connections between different groups." "That's wonderful," Elena said. "Can we incorporate it into next month's cultural exchange program?" "Already planning it," Marcus confirmed. The visiting delegates looked impressed. One of them, an elderly Korthan scholar, spoke thoughtfully. "When the council first approved this institute, many of us were skeptical. We thought it would become a place of human dominance. But you have created something truly collaborative. Something that honors the Aetheri's message, while respecting all species equally." "That was always the goal," Elena said. "The Aethari didn't leave their wisdom for humans alone. They left it for anyone willing to listen, with an open heart and an open mind." As the sun began to set, casting orange and purple hues across the desert landscape, Elena stood on the Institute's observation deck. From here, she could see the entire complex, the modern buildings, the ancient tomb entrance, the gardens where students gathered, the landing pads where ships from countless worlds arrived daily. Krelvok joined her on the deck, his forearms crossed comfortably. "You've accomplished something remarkable here, Elena. The Athari would be proud." "We've accomplished it together," Elena corrected gently. "None of this would exist without support from you, Miras, Thok, Ambassador Chen, and thousands of others who believed in the vision." "True," Krelvok agreed. "But you were the bridge. You heard the whispers first. You understood what the Aetheri were trying to tell us." Elena thought about that first day at the tomb entrance, when she had heard her name whispered from ancient stone. It felt like a lifetime ago, though only months had passed. "I think the greatest lesson the Athari taught me," Elena said quietly, "is that our mistakes don't define us. Our scars don't have to be sources of shame. They can be sources of wisdom. Humanity's troubled history, our ongoing struggles, these aren't weaknesses. They're what make us capable of understanding and teaching transformation." "You sound like a philosopher now," Krelvok said with something that might have been a smile. Elena laughed. "Maybe I'm learning from 50,000-year-old teachers." As darkness fell, the Institute's lights came on, making the building glow like a beacon in the desert. Inside, students from across the galaxy were still studying, still discussing, still learning from the HFY's ancient wisdom. Elena felt the whispers again, soft and peaceful, like a gentle wind carrying words from across time and space. "Thank you for listening," the whispers said. "Thank you for learning. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for carrying us forward with wisdom and compassion. You are becoming what we knew you could be." Elena closed her eyes and whispered back, "Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for leaving us this gift. Thank you for reminding us that change is possible, that growth never ends, and that civilizations like individuals can always choose to become better than they were." The whispers faded into comfortable silence. But Elena knew they would return whenever someone with an open heart entered the tomb, ready to listen and learn. The HFY had been gone for 50,000 years, but their legacy was alive and growing. Their wisdom was spreading across the galaxy, carried by beings of countless species who had come to understand a simple but profound truth. The journey toward becoming better never ends. And we walk that journey together. Elena smiled and turned back toward the Institute, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. The stars above Zenara 7 shone brightly, and somewhere among them, she imagined the HFY watching, proud of what their message had inspired, pleased that their gift had found worthy hands. The ancient civilization had whispered her name, and Elena had answered. Now, the whispers echoed across the stars, carried by every being who had learned that mistakes could become wisdom, that flaws could become strengths, and that the greatest gift one civilization could leave another was simply this: hope